Welcome to Module 2 in the 2022-23 Test Security Training Series. OSSE's Office of Assessments has developed a series of training modules to prepare LEA Test Integrity Coordinators, LEA Assessment Managers, LEA Test Coordinators, and non-public school test coordinators for the Spring 2023 Statewide Assessment Administration. There are 6 required training modules. These modules are required for all LEA Test Integrity Coordinators, LEA Assessment Managers, LEA Test Coordinators, and non-public school test coordinators, including those responsible for Access and Alternate Access, MSAA, DLM, DC Science, and PARC. The modules follow the order of activities in the assessment coordination timeline. Upon the completion of all training modules, you will need to complete a quiz and certification form verifying that you have viewed all content. A score of 80% or higher out of 120 total points on the quiz will serve as the official attendance and completion of the 2023 Test Security Training. In Module 2, we will cover Part 1 of preparing for test administration. This assessment coordination timeline shows the activities needed in order to complete statewide assessment administration in the District of Columbia. The color and shape of each icon indicates who is performing each action, which is outlined on this slide and discussed in Module 0. Starting in Module 1, these icons appear in the top right corner of slides to indicate where in the coordination process those activities occur. You may find it helpful to have this timeline available for reference as you go through each training module. Each training module provides detailed information on the activities in the assessment coordination timeline. In this module, we will cover the steps highlighted in the orange dotted line. Register students to test, assign student testing accommodations, assign staff to testing roles, establish a school test security file, and receive testing materials. We will take a moment here to review some important links to resources that will be helpful as you prepare to administer statewide assessments. Important information and links to assessment resources can be found on OSSE's website. The first link here, osse.dc.gov/assessments, will take you to OSSE's main state assessments webpage. From there, you can find detailed information about each statewide assessment and other important resources from the Office of Assessments. The Test Security Forms and Guidelines link here will take you to the landing page for test security resources, including test security guidelines, test security notification statements and affidavits, test security incident reporting forms, and forms to request medical exemptions or unique or emergency accommodations for assessments. The required test security training modules are also located on this page. The Test Coordinator Resources link here is the main landing page for administration resources for LEA test coordinators and non-public school test coordinators. This page contains the 2022-23 school year testing windows and test administration training schedule, as well as customer support information for each assessment program. The final link here contains guidance documents for selecting appropriate accommodations and accessibility features for students, and links to manuals for each assessment program for assessment-specific guidance. The first step that we will cover is registering students to test. Each assessment includes a registration process that is completed by LEAs in partnership with OSSE. The Office of Assessments releases a participation and performance policy annually to guide the registration process and allow LEAs to understand the requirements that best align to their academic program. The 2022-23 school year statewide assessments participation and performance policy can be found on OSSE's webpage, linked on this slide. Specific to access for ELLs and alternate access, students identified as English learners who have not yet scored a 4.5 or higher on the Access Assessment will be registered by OSSE to take the Access Assessment. The exit score for kindergarten access is 5.0. OSSE uses the information provided in the pre-ID file to register students into the Access Testing platform. The pre-ID file comes from the information entered and verified in OSSE's pre-ID QuickBase application. LEAs in schools are responsible for making sure that the information in the pre-ID QuickBase application is correct and up to date. Access Test Coordinators will use the pre-ID QuickBase application to verify student demographic information and report any discrepancies to OSSE, indicate required accommodations if warranted, and identify which mode of administration, online or paper, a student will require. All access registration and verification must be completed by Friday, December 9th. If you have any questions about the pre-ID QuickBase application or the registration process for access or alternate access, please contact Assad Fulton at assad.fulton@dc.gov. LEA test coordinators for alternate assessments can view all approved applicants in the Special Education Data System, SEDS, and the alternate assessment MSAA QuickBase application on January 9th. Students in grades 3 through 8 and 11 whose alternate assessment eligibility applications are approved will be registered by OSSE to take MSAA. Test coordinators for alternate assessments will verify this registration information in the alternate assessment QuickBase application and report any discrepancies to OSSE by the end of January 2023. If you have any questions about this registration process, please contact Assad Fulton at assad.fulton@dc.gov. Students in grades 5 and 8 whose alternate assessment eligibility applications are approved will be registered for the DLM assessment by OSSE. Students taking a high school biology course will be registered by the LEA. LEA test coordinators for alternate assessments can view all approved applicants in the Special Education Data System, SEDS, and the alternate assessment QuickBase application on January 9th. PARCC is taken annually by students in grades 3 through 8 and students registered to certain high school courses. Please review the 2022-23 statewide assessments participation and performance policy for specific details on required PARCC assessments. DC Science is taken by students in grades 5 and 8 and by students enrolled in a high school biology course. Park and DC Science registration aligns with each student's enrolled grade or course. OSSE registers all students in grades 3 through 8 for the Park and DC Science assessments. LEAs verify Park and DC Science registration for grades 3 through 8 and make adjustments for students in grades 7 and 8 taking advanced mathematics courses. LEAs register all high school students for Park and DC Science based on course enrollment. Park and DC Science registration information is uploaded into Pearson Access Next or PAN through a spreadsheet called the Student Registration and Personal Needs Profile, SRPNP. SRPNP registration fields include LEA and school code, student name, unique student identifier or USI, birth date and current grade, and other demographic information. Directions for completing the SRPNP file can be found in Pearson Access Next or PAN, which is linked on this slide. LEAs and non-public schools have staggered deadlines for their student registration completion. LEAs will complete the SRPNP by February 21st. This allows non-public school teams enough time to verify and submit the PNP for students attending their non-public school by February 24th. As a reminder, the LEA Assessment Manager is responsible for liaising with non-public school test coordinators or other LEA designees in charge of direct communication with non-public schools. This information was released in the August NGA meeting and is outlined in the LEA Assessment Manager Roles and Responsibilities document found on the Test Coordinator Resources webpage. Non-public school test coordinators should coordinate with LEAs to determine which assessments are to be administered to students attending non-public schools, confirm student registration in the online systems, assign accommodations as outlined in student IEPs, 504s, or English learner plans, and confirm that student accommodations are accurate in online systems. For more information about the role of non-public schools in test security and administration, please see the document linked on this slide. The non-public school test security and administration document can also be found on the Test Coordinator Resources webpage. If you have any questions about the Park or DC Science registration process, please contact the Office of Assessments at osse.assessment@dc.gov. Test security reminder for Park and DC Science Administration. Please ensure that students are accurately registered to test before submitting the school test security plan. As part of the school test plan review, OSSE goes into Pearson Access Next and reviews the SRPNP file. There must be information in the SRPNP file before OSSE can approve a Park and DC Science school test security plan. The next topic we will cover in this module is assigning student testing accommodations. Accommodations and accessibility features are identified for each student through each assessment's online platform. There are differences between accommodations and accessibility features as illustrated in the visual aid on this slide. There are some accessibility features that are available to all students already built into test platforms. There are also some accessibility features in the test platforms that must be selected in advance for individual students. In both cases, accessibility features may be assigned to any student based on policies established by the LEA or school. Then there are accommodations that must be identified and selected in advance. Accommodations can only be assigned if they are included in a student's IEP, 504, or EL plan. Additional guidance on assigning accommodations and accessibility features for each assessment can be found here. Test security reminder. Students are entitled to the accommodations in their IEP, 504, or EL plans. Failing to provide students with the accommodations listed in these plans is a violation of their rights and of test security. LEAs and schools are responsible for maintaining consistency between accommodations provided during instruction and statewide assessments. Additionally, providing an accommodation to a student who is not eligible for the accommodation is also a violation of test security and compromises the student's assessment results. Additional information about this step in the test administration timeline. Test coordinators need to work with the special populations coordinators at your schools to communicate policies and assign accommodations and accessibility features effectively. Here are some things to consider when planning for accommodations for students. LEAs and school policies should be created to ensure accessibility features are assigned equitably. Accommodations and accessibility features should be reflective of a student's typical instructional experience. Students should practice using accommodations and accessibility features prior to testing. And schools and LEAs are encouraged to consult the 2022-23 OSSE Accessibility Features Guide and Testing Accommodations Guides for additional guidance on assigning accessibility features and accommodations for all assessments. Students taking the Access for ELLs or alternate access may require the assignment of accommodations, universal tools, or administrative considerations. Accommodations must be assigned in the pre-ID file during the registration process. Access test coordinators will use the pre-ID Quick-Base application to assign accommodations. Universal tools and administrative considerations can be assigned to any student prior to or during testing based on the discretion of the school or LEA. Documentation of the use of these tools is not required for the access assessment. Students taking the MSAA may require the use of accommodations and/or accessibility features. Please reference the MSAA Test Administrator Manual for a list of available accommodations. Any accommodations listed in the student's IEP may be used during the administration of the MSAA. For DLM, the test administrator is prompted to complete a first contact survey for each registered student. The results of this survey determine the accommodations in the DLM system. There is no additional action needed to assign accommodations for DLM. Park and DC Science accommodations and accessibility features are identified for each student in the Personal Needs Profile section of the SRPMP. Information in the SRPMP is used by Pearson to provide digital supports to students. The SRPMP accommodations should be completed by February 21st to ensure student materials are shipped to schools prior to testing. Non-public schools should input the personal needs profile between February 21st and February 24th. If a student's accommodations change due to updates in an IEP, 504, or EL plan, accommodations can be updated in the SRPMP at any time before testing begins. Accessibility features do not require materials from Pearson and can be completed in the SRPMP anytime before submission of the school test security plan. Test security reminder. Please ensure that accommodations and accessibility features are accurate and uploaded into the systems for their respective assessments prior to the submission of the school test security plan. For Park and DC Science, OSSE checks Pearson Access Next and reviews the SRPMP file. The required testing and student information must be in the SRPMP file before OSSE can approve a Park or DC Science plan. The next step we will cover in the administration timeline is to assign staff to testing roles. The LEA assessment managers, LEA test coordinators, and/or non-public school test coordinators must assign authorized personnel to the following roles prior to test administration: Test Integrity Coordinator, or LEA Assessment Manager, or LEA Test Coordinator, Test Monitor, or School Test Coordinator, Special Populations Coordinator, Technology Coordinator, Test Administrator, and Test Proctor if applicable. Detailed information on the roles and responsibilities for each of these individuals were covered in Module 1 of this training series. Depending on the assessment and role, these assignments may require access to online systems. Review the test manuals to ensure authorized personnel have the access they need for their role. Test security reminder. All of the individuals listed in the previous slide are considered authorized personnel. All authorized personnel must be trained on test security and administration and receive the testing integrity and security notification statement prior to the start of their involvement in the test administration. Note: if any authorized personnel is not trained prior to the start of the test administration, they must attend a makeup training session before they can be involved as an authorized personnel in the test administration. Access test coordinators who have been registered with OSSE via the Site ID file will be provided with accounts in WIDA AMS, the Assessment Management System for Access for ELLs. These user accounts allow test coordinators to provide user access to test administrators and other authorized personnel as needed. If you are the Access Test Coordinator and you do not currently have a WIDA AMS account, please contact Assad Fulton at assad.fulton@dc.gov. MSAA test coordinators who have been registered with OSSE will receive access to their accounts in the MSAA system in late February or early March 2023. Similar to Access, these user accounts allow test coordinators to provide user access to test administrators and other authorized personnel as needed. The DLM LEA Test Coordinator is the main point of contact between OSSE, the DLM Service Desk, and the LEA. A key duty of the LEA Test Coordinator is managing staff and educator roles and responsibilities in the DLM Educator Portal. Duties include monitor staff roles and whether an account is active, pending, or inactive in the Educator Portal, and monitor test administrator completion of the security agreement and training in the Educator Portal. Before serving as DLM test administrators, educators must complete the required test administrator training online and complete the DLM security agreement. For 2023, all DLM test administrators must complete the training modules for new test administrators, even if they served in this role in previous years. If you are the LEA test coordinator or a non-public school test coordinator for DLM and do not currently have access to the Educator Portal, please contact Chelsea Charland at chelsea.charland@dc.gov. Park and DC Science LEA test coordinators who have registered with OSSE will be provided with accounts in Pearson Access Next. These user accounts allow test coordinators to provide user access to test administrators and other authorized personnel as needed. Resources for each Park and DC Science role can be found in the Park and DC Science Test Coordinator and Test Administrator manuals located at dc.mypearsonsupport.com. These manuals will be available online in January. They will be linked on OSSE's website on the Test Coordinator page and on the Pearson Support page. One thing that is important to note, test coordinators and test administrators are responsible for reading the manuals and performing their duties as outlined. The next step we will cover is to establish a school test security file. Every school is required to establish and maintain a school test security file in hard copy format and keep it on file for 4 years. In this file, there are a number of documents that need to be organized and maintained. Those documents include approved school test security plan, up-to-date authorized personnel roster, up-to-date school test schedule, test security training attendance sheet, test security training materials, family notification letters with notes on accommodations, test material chain of custody forms, incident reports, during testing notes including minor deviations from school test plan, fact-finding inquiries and plan to improve documents if applicable, and test integrity and test security affidavits. The complete list of documents that are required to be stored in the school test security file are listed in the School Test Security File Checklist document on OSSE's Test Security webpage. A test security reminder for this step in the timeline is to ensure that the test security file is updated as often as possible during and after the test administration window. During monitoring visits, OSSE will request to view the hard copy test security file. OSSE may request to see any document from the test security file at any time in a 4-year period. The last step we will cover in Module 2 is receiving test materials. Assessments often require secure and accommodated materials to be shipped from the vendor to the school. Materials may include test manuals, test booklets and answer sheets, accommodated test materials, and return shipping materials. All hard copy materials shipped by the testing vendor must be accepted in person. When receiving a shipment, check to ensure all ordered materials have been provided. Finally, keep secure testing materials locked away in a secure location prior to testing. Non-secure materials, such as manuals, may have electronic versions available. Refer to assessment-specific guidance on how to obtain your test manuals. Ordering of access and all access assessment materials takes place during the student registration process through the pre-ID file. Please ensure this file is accurate and complete so that all students receive the materials they need for testing in a timely manner. Test coordinators should complete the following when materials are received. Watch the Managing Test Materials tutorial. Receive inventory and distribute test materials to designated staff in accordance with LEA and OSSE policies. Report the amount and type of overage to OSSE. If you have questions about access shipments, please contact Assad Fulton at assad.fulton@dc.gov. MSAA testing materials can be downloaded from the MSAA online system. To administer the assessment, test coordinators will need to download the following materials: Directions for Test Administration and Test Administration Manual. Note: the DLM assessment does not have any physical testing materials that will ship to schools. All supports are provided through the online system. For Park and DC Science, the SRPMP file is used to determine what materials each school needs to support students with paper-based accommodations. In most cases, accommodations will be delivered electronically in the testing platform, but some paper-based materials may need to be shipped to schools. All LEAs should finalize accommodations and ensure they are accurately updated in this file by February 21st. Non-public schools should ensure all accommodations are accurately input into the SRPMP file by February 24th. Materials will begin to arrive in March. Note: these orders may take 1 to 2 weeks to arrive at schools, so please plan additional orders accordingly. Each school will receive a test coordinator manual and test administrator manuals. They will arrive with your school's assessment materials shipments. These manuals are not secure materials. Review the contents of the manuals and share the test administrator manuals with your staff members so they are aware of their testing responsibilities. LEAs may also choose not to receive paper manuals by selecting the option in PAN. Electronic versions of the test coordinator and test administrator manuals will be available online in January 2023. If you'd like to review the manuals prior to receiving your materials, you can download and print copies at dc.mypearsonsupport.com/manuals. For Park and DC Science, secure and scorable materials will need to be returned to Pearson at the end of testing. Until they are returned, they must be kept in a locked space. The test coordinator manual includes the list of secure materials. Secure materials that must be destroyed by the school include student testing tickets, student rosters containing TestNav usernames and passwords, any reports or other documents with student personally identifiable information or PII, and any scratch paper or printed math reference sheets that have been written on during testing. Secure materials that must be shipped back to Pearson include test booklets and answer documents, human reader scripts, and tactile graphics. Shipments from Pearson will include labels and packaging for returning secure materials. Keep these materials for use at the end of testing. Additional orders do not include return shipment materials. If you will need return materials that you do not already have, please order them with your additional order. Return shipments must be sent to Pearson within 5 school days of the last day of testing. Contact UPS to schedule a pickup for your materials and provide them with the details on the shipping label Pearson has provided. As a reminder, any test materials that include test content or that could assist in unauthorized access to the testing platform is considered a secure material and must be securely stored as soon as it is delivered or printed. Secure materials cannot be transported between locations. They must be shipped to the school where the student assessment will be administered and kept in a secure location until the time of testing. For this reason, it is important to verify all student registration information as well as school shipping addresses in the assessment management platform for each assessment. Examples of secure testing materials include paper test booklets or answer documents, testing tickets, secure contents displayed on testing screens, used scratch paper, human reader scripts, and etc. This concludes Module 2 of this training series. Please move on to Module 3, where we will cover Part 2 of preparing for test administration. If you have questions about OSSE assessment policies or specific assessment programs, please use the information on this slide to reach out to the appropriate member of the OSSE Office of Assessments.